Positioned at a crossroads in the Indian Ocean, the islands originally attracted seafarers, merchants, and settlers from neighboring countries who appreciated the calm waters of the lagoons and the bounty of coconuts and fish. Whether people were marooned there by shipwreck or arrived as exiles from places such as India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Africa, and even Greece and the Roman Empire, the struggle for survival left little time for dispute, so gradually an ad hoc nation of islanders came into being. The latest archaeological evidence suggests that the Maldives Islands were first inhabited in around 1500 BC. It seems likely that the islands were first permanently settled by Aryan immigrants who are also believed to have colonized Sri Lanka at around the same time. Subsequent migrations at regular intervals from southern India and Sri Lanka served to further expand the population of the Maldives. Documented contact with the outside world began around 947 AD, when Arab travelers began visiting the islands. Arab and Persian traders soon began arriving in large numbers, attracted to the Maldives by the abundance of pearls, spices, coconuts, dried fish, and, in particular, cowrie shells, which were accepted currency from Africa to China until the 16th century. These traders profoundly influenced Maldivian society and culture, with perhaps their most significant impact being in the religious sphere. The Maldives officially converted to Islam in 1153 AD. Before converting to Islam, the Maldivians were known to practice Buddhism and ancient paganism. Ancient Buddhist ruins are preserved in the country, and antique Buddhist artifacts are displayed in the National Museum in Male. Historic remains indicate that Buddhists and Hindus brought their own beliefs, and logically, Arab settlers would have brought Islam with them. However, Islam did not become the official religion until 1153, while conversion of all the islanders took a further 60 years, uniting the settlers of the atolls into a nation ruled by a sultan, and sometimes a sultana. The post was never hereditary, and the ruling council, which included women, selected the sultan. Various dynasties ruled the Maldives without attracting much attention from the rest of the world, surviving through fishing and trading, including the export of cowrie shells, which became a currency accepted worldwide and earning the Maldives the nickname of Money Islands. Peace was shattered with the arrival of the Portuguese in the Indian Ocean, and they eventually invaded the islands in 1558. Their occupation lasted 15 years, until they were ousted by Muhammad Takurufanu, a resident of Uthimu, who led a band of Maldivians in seaborne guerrilla warfare against the Portuguese and thwarted their attempts to convert the islanders to Christianity. Invasions from India followed in the 17th century, but these were resisted, with Sultan Ibrahim Iskandar even invading territory of the Raja of Kananore and taking hostages, which put an end to Indian interest in the islands for 40 years. There was a brief occupation by Malabars in the 18th century. The Dutch, who were interested in trade through their base in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, surveyed the islands in 1671 but did not stay. The French, who had a fort in Pondicherry, were allowed to station forces in Male for a short time to protect the islands from Indian attacks. By the beginning of the 19th century, British power was predominant in the Indian Ocean. To keep the British at bay in 1887, Sultan Muhammad Muinuddin II exchanged letters with the governor of Ceylon, representing Queen Victoria, enabling the Maldives to enjoy the status of a protected state, although not actually becoming an occupied British protectorate. The Sultanate became a republic in 1953, with Muhammad Amin Didi, formerly Prime Minister, as president for a few months before the Sultanate was restored. The Maldives became independent in 1965. 3 years later, the Sultanate was abolished again, and Ibrahim Nasser was elected president. People and language. Evidence suggests that Maldives has been populated and thriving as early as the 4th century BC. It is evident that the first settlers were an Indo-Aryan race from India, and historical records show that although small in numbers, people have migrated from Arabia and Eastern Africa. An anthropological survey carried out at the end of the 19th century showed the Maldivian inhabitants had traits that revealed ancestral linkages with peoples from all corners of the Indian Ocean. Today, the Maldivians are a mixed race with a population of about 550,000. Travelers to the Maldives have commented on the Maldivian people as kind and hospitable people, a peaceable race, and as a people who are kind to visitors and travelers. The people of the Maldives are unified by a common history, faith, and language. Although the islands are dispersed over a long stretch of ocean, these elements create a common bond that has kept the Maldives unified as a nation for centuries. Divehi is the language of the Maldives. The language has undergone changes as a result of contact with the outside world throughout the centuries, blending with and absorbing new influences as it evolved. Given the wide dispersion of the islands, it is not surprising that the vocabulary and pronunciation vary from atoll to atoll, which is especially significant in the southernmost atolls. The language displays much resemblance to several other languages from Sri Lanka and rest of Asia. It contains many Arabic, Hindi, and English words. Historically, the early people spoke Elu, a form of ancient Sinhalese. Many of the Divehi words have their root in Sanskrit. Divehi is used in the administration of the country. Until the 1960s, Divehi was also the medium of teaching in all schools. But even today, Divehi is a compulsory subject in the national curriculum. English is widely understood, spoken and written by the locals. Many in the tourist industry are also fluent in other European languages and Japanese. Maldivian dress. The Maldives has its own national dresses and costumes that have changed over time. Even today, a walk on the streets in Male will offer you a mix of the traditional with the modern. The oldest Maldivian dress is the libayas, which has evolved and changed over time. The libayas is worn with an underskirt called faili. Faili has traditionally been an important piece of attire for both men and women. It is a black or dark brown wraparound that is bordered at the bottom with broad stripes of white. Faili was worn by the nobility as a sarong. The wraparound was also part of the ceremonial dress of the palace guards and other attendants at the palace. Diguhedhun is a more recent introduction. The national dress was designed and introduced in the 1950s and is now widely worn by ladies as an everyday dress, as well as at important national functions. Folklore. The Maldives is no exception when it comes to legend, myth, and folklore. There is legend and myth surrounding key event in history, such as the arrival of the first settlers to Maldives, the conversion of Islam, and the liberation from Portuguese rule in the 16th century. There is also a tradition of storytelling. Such legends and stories were passed on from generation to generation by word of mouth. Traditional storytellers knew the stories by heart, and they presented it with passion and drama. The story of Don Hiyala and Ali Fulhu, the island of Buruni and Thaa Atoll, is the setting of the most famous love story in Maldivian folklore, and it is the most popular love story in the Maldives' history. The story is a linguistic picture of island life from much earlier time, referring the close relationship between Maldivians and the sea. The worst external threats to the islanders comes from the kings in Male. Don Hiyala was a beautiful girl who lived on the island of Buruni in 14th century. Her father was a toddy tapper, who was also an eloquent reader of the Holy Quran. In recognition of his skill, the king elevated Don Hiyala's father from the rank of toddy tapper to rank of Malin. Don Hiyala, meanwhile, was in love with Ali Fulhu, a goldsmith from island of Hulhudali of Dalu Atoll. They loved each other dearly, and Ali Fulhu gave Don Hiyala a lot of beautiful jewelry as a token of the love he felt for her. The blessing and the fortune that the king bestowed on Don Hiyala's family as a result of her father's achievement turned out to be a curse on Don Hiyala. Don Hiyala's beauty was noticed by the king, and he asked Don Hiyala's hand in marriage. Don Hiyala refused, and the king's agents seized her and took her to the palace in Mal. Ali Fulhu followed her to Male. Lost and in total desperation, Ali Fulhu rescued his love from the clutches of the evil agents at the palace. They were pursued by the king's soldiers. The couple decided to jump into the sea, rather than fall into the hands of their pursuers. The story of Rana Maori, Maldivians embraced Islam in 1153 AD. As expected, with such an important event that changed the lives of all Maldivans, There is legend and myth about the events surrounding the conversion to Islam. Ibn Battuta, the famous traveler and historian, visited and lived in the Maldives in the 14th century, just over 2 centuries after the conversion to Islam. He wrote the legend as it was narrated to him by the people at the time. The people of the islands at the time were idol worshippers, and there appeared in Mail once every month a demon from the sea known as Ranamari, which resembled a ship full of lamps. To appease the demon, the islanders had to take a virgin girl to a temple on the seashore. The unlucky girl is taken to the temple at sunset on the night of the demon's appearance and left there alone. In the morning, the people would find the girl dishonored and dead. Every month, the islanders drew lots to decide who should go, and the unlucky man on whom the lot fell sacrificed his daughter for the safety of the community. Once, there was a pious traveler from Morocco by the name of Abu al-Barakat Yusuf al-Barbari, who was on a visit to Mela. He was staying with a poor family in the island. One day, when he arrived home, he found the family distraught and deeply distressed. He inquired as to the reason why they were crying and was told the story of the evil spirit, that the lot has fallen on their daughter and that she has to be taken to the temple for the sacrifice that night. Abu al-Barakat comforted the family and said that their daughter need not go. It was he who went to the temple that evening, clad as a girl. The next morning, when the islanders went to the temple, to their amazement, they found the pious traveler from Morocco sitting there and reciting the Holy Quran. The people took Abu al-Barakat to their king, who was told of the extraordinary happenings of the night before. The king was astonished, and the Moroccan proposed to him to embrace the true faith of Islam. The king asked him to wait for 1 more month. The following month, on the day of the appearance of the demon, Abu al-Barakat went to the temple. The king and his subjects arrived at the temple the next morning to find him yet again reciting the Holy Quran. The people then broke their temples and idols and embraced Islam. Even after the people converted to Islam, the fear of the demon remained embedded in their minds. Ibn Battuta wrote that when he was in Malay, one evening he heard a lot of shouting and crying. He found out that the people had seen the demon coming from the sea, full of lamps, as it was said in the legend. People started praying and reciting the Quran, after which the demon disappeared. Note, there are many versions of the story of Ranamari. Maldives culture. The Maldivian culture, when seen through its music and dance and its art and craft, reveal the journey it has taken through time. One sees the obvious influences of South Asian culture, elements of Malaysian and Indonesian culture, East Africa and Arab culture as well. At most celebrations in Maldives, you will find a blending of tradition and modern entertainment folk dances. Music using drums and wooden instruments may be followed by modern jazz or pop music. Music and dance. The traditional songs and dance that we see and hear today are just a small part of what our ancestors performed and enjoyed. The process of modernization has unfortunately buried many of those in the sands of time. Below, we give you a sample of some of the dances we know today. Bandia Jahun, a traditional dance performed only by women, is said to be an adaptation of the Indian pot dance. The dance is accompanied by a small band consisting of singers and a number of musical instruments including drums and harmonica. The women swing their bodies in formation as they tap out a beat on their metal water pots in accompaniment to music and song. Bola Malafai Nashun, the dance comes from the old tradition of women offering gifts to the Sultan on special occasions such as Eid festival. The gifts are kept in a wooden container intricately decorated with lacquer known as the Kurandi Malafai. The Malafai is covered in a piece of colorful silk cloth. The women taking part in the dance also wear equally bright-colored dresses. The dancers in a group may number as many as 24. They dance and sing to the tune of music expressing national sentiments. Bodu Beru, perhaps the most widely known and most widely performed music and dance today, Bodu Beru originated from East Africa. Traditionally a men's performance, the troupe consists of 3 drummers, lead singer, and a chorus of 10 to 15 men. The songs vary in mood and rhythm. Most songs begin slow and increase in tempo. 1, 2, or 3 dancers from the group start to dance as the song progresses. The dancers fling their arms and legs and sway to the beat as the music reaches a crescendo. It is quite common for the audience to join in with the dancers. Bodu Baru is the most commonly practiced traditional music in the country today and are enjoyed by both genders, young and old. Ga Odilava was born during the reign of Sultan Muhammad Imaduddin, 1621–1648 AD. The Sultan wanted to build a breakwater around Mal in an effort to defend the island. Corals were harvested from the many reefs around the capital for this purpose. When each boat carrying coral stones completed their task, they paid a ceremonial visit to the Sultan, singing songs and dancing to express their happiness. These dances and the accompanying songs eventually became known as Ga Odilava. Ga meaning stone and Odi meaning boat. Ga Odilava continued to be performed as an expression of satisfaction, marking the completion of major community works. Dandi Jehun is another form of entertainment which is popular throughout the country. This is mostly performed to celebrate festive events such as Eid and other national occasions. Thara was introduced to the Maldives by Gulf Arabs who came here in the mid-17th century. Tha'ara, meaning tambourine, is performed by 22 people seated in 2 parallel rows facing each other. It is a type of music which has a semi-religious touch and is distinct to men only. In Tha'ara, there is both singing and dancing. The traditional Tha'ara songs were in Arabic, art and craft. The historical and maritime links with South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Arabs are quite obvious in Maldivian culture. Even with rapid development and modernization which has brought in new influences, strong elements of these links remain vividly engraved in the local culture. These elements combine with indigenous local culture to create a distinct, sophisticated style of art and craft in the Maldives. The Maldivian doni can perhaps be taken as a symbol of the caliber of the Maldivian craftsmanship, shaped, crafted, and evolved to suit the needs of the people who use them, and made to withstand the uncertainties of the wind and waves. With long, slender, elegant curving prows, the Maldivian doni is a work of art, an outstanding example of craftsmanship and execution. It is amazing that these boats were made without any written plans. The chief carpenter or mavati brings out the shape and symmetry using his eyes and experience. The skill of boat building has been handed over from generation to generation. Boats are central to Maldivian life, from earning a living, transporting produce to travel from one island to another. Hence, the development of these vessels must have played a pivotal role in improving life in the unique marine environment of the Maldives. In the 13th century, the planks of the doni were held together by quar. By the 16th century, wooden pegs were in use, which then gave way to iron nails. The sail has seen similar changes. A square sail made from coconut fronds gave way to a triangular lateen sail, which is now used only as a backup in case of engine failure. Although the basic style and design of the doni has remained the same, the technique of boat building has also changed tremendously. Thundu Kuna, throughout the country, women weave beautiful and detailed reed mats, the most impressive of which is the Thundu Kuna. The mats are woven using hau, reeds. The entire production process is carried out by women. After the hau is dried, it is stained with natural dyes which vary from fawn to black and yellow. The rush is then trimmed and the strips are then woven on a horizontal loom. The finished product is beautifully smooth on the upper surface with abstract designs. The complexity of the designs varies according to the talent and imagination of the weaver. Lacquered boxes and ornaments, Lia La Jehun, as it is known in Divahi, is perhaps the country's most distinct craft. The craftsmen on Tulhadhu in Ba Atoll are renowned for their skill in the art of Lia La Jehun. Pieces of wood are lathed to produce the desired shapes: a vase, a trinket holder, or the malud foshi, large round plates with lids, traditionally used during feast and festivals. Each piece is lacquered in strands of red, black, and yellow resin, and abstract sketches are lightly curved into the black strands. Festive Maldives. Maldivian festivals and holidays celebrate religious and national festivals and events. While the religious and some of the national holidays are celebrated following the Islamic lunar calendar, some of the national holidays such as the Independence Day, are based on the Western calendar. Ramadan is the longest and perhaps the most important festival in the Maldives. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Muslim calendar, the fasting month, and one of the most outstanding months in terms of how patterns of life and other aspects change from the norm. The month commemorates the revelation of Quran, and all Muslims fast during the day, abstaining from all food and drink. The fast is broken at sunset, and a wondrous spread of food and drink is prepared in each household to break the fast. The atmosphere during the month of Ramadan is pious as well as festive. Quda Eid, or Eid ul-Fitr as it is known in Arabic, is the celebration to mark the end of Ramadan. The day starts with the morning prayer, and by noon each house has prepared a feast to mark the day. Family, friends, neighbors, and total strangers are invited to take part in the recitation of prayers and to enjoy the feast. In the afternoon, different events are held to mark the day. Today, traditional activities go hand in hand with sports and other community celebrations. Hajj and Bodu Eid, Muslims are required to perform the pilgrimage to Mecca, known as Hajj, once in their lifetime, if they can afford the journey. The 9th day of the month of Zul-Hijjah in the lunar calendar is the day of Hajj. The 10th is the Eid ul-Adha, the festival of sacrifice. The day of Hajj, Bodu Eid, and the 3 days that follow are national holidays and are the longest annual public holiday in the Maldives. It is a time when people travel to their islands with family and friends, making it the most celebrated festival in the country. The day of Hajj is a day of prayer, while Bodu Eid is a day of celebration. Feasts are enjoyed in all homes, and several activities are held in all communities to celebrate the day. National Day, on the 1st of July, 1573, Muhammad Taqurufanu defeated the occupying Portuguese forces. The National Day honors Muhammad Taqurufanu and celebrates the liberation of the country 4 centuries ago. The National Day is marked on the 1st of Rabiul Awwal, the first day of the 3rd month in the Islamic calendar. Maldivian food. If you guessed that the most important ingredient in Maldivian recipes is tuna, you guessed right. From the traditional fish broth that is served daily at homes to savories and snacks, from curries to delightful accompaniments, tuna and grated coconut are key ingredients. What may surprise you, though, is how different they taste in spite of their common ingredient. Local vegetables and fruits have also been part of the local cuisine. Pumpkin, breadfruit, plantains, and gourds are used to make mouth-watering delicacies. Like everything else, food has also been heavily influenced by modernization. Today, imported vegetables and meats form part of the daily diet throughout the country. Agriculture has taken in these changes into account, and many vegetables such as tomatoes and eggplants, which were not grown before, have been introduced and widely grown. The most commonly seen local eatery is the Sai Hota, a cafe that serves tea and a wide range of savories throughout the day and meals during lunch and dinner time. Quick guide to cuisine: gulha, fish and scraped coconut mixture wrapped in a ball of pastry and deep-fried. Kavabu, deep-fried fish risol. Kulibuakiba, fish cake. Fihunu mas, fish brushed with chili paste and barbecued over hot coals. Suji, a thick sweet drink made with semolina, coconut milk, sultanas, nuts, and a dash of cinnamon and cardamom. Garudia. Part of the traditional staple diet, garudia is a fish broth eaten with rice. On its own, it appears bland, but the taste is enhanced with the complete accompaniments that include the traditional chili paste, lonumiris, chilies, and onions. Garudia is also eaten with boiled breadfruit and taro.